Whitechester, Prison City of the Damned, is currently funding on Indiegogo. Please go there and support this city crawl for 5th edition and probably Morkborg, Grimdark, and Lamentations of the Flame Princess.
Hello lovelies, got a question from the audience to answer today about advice for aspiring writers and artists in the role-playing game sphere, whatever you want to call it. But first, we have a new book out. It's a medieval, authentic bestiary with stats for Morkborg and old-school Renaissance games by Neil Coates. So you can pop on over to post-mork.com and pick that up on PDF, or hop on over to lulu.com and pick it up in print. So, Mad King Stowe, in the comments on one of my previous videos, asks, do you have any advice for aspiring writers or artists who want to self-publish or get involved in the industry? I always appreciate your insightful, transparent and principled views on the variety of subjects you tackle, but I've never heard your advice for people considering entering the gaming industry. You have quite a bit of experience, and I imagine you could help a lot of starry-eyed idealists avoid some common pitfalls. Perhaps this is a subject you've already discussed and I've just missed those videos. You've made many, so that's very likely the case. So if that is the case, could you please point me to a video I can watch? Now, I sell my advice. I have a video course that you can get at Drivethrurpg because nowhere else could handle the immensity of the files involved. But I'll give you a sort of Cliff Notes or Grim Notes version, I guess. So, what advice would I give writers, games designers, artists who are thinking of self-publishing or getting involved in the role-playing game industry? I would say, get off my patch or I'll fucking cut ya. But if I'm not saying that, now is a good time for developing games or honing your skill, but it's also not a particularly good time to go to market, because it is wildly oversaturated by people who have taken, time off, lockdown, whatever, due to COVID, and have tried to turn their hobby into a money-spinning enterprise. And so the market is glutted with people trying to turn their hobbies into businesses, which is great and wonderful, but it does mean that it's incredibly crowded and it's very difficult to get your start at the moment. Even though a lot more money is being spent on games, tabletop games, miniatures, mostly D&D unfortunately, but that's how it goes. A lot of money is being spent in these hobbies and pastimes because of COVID, but even so, the market is massively oversaturated. And a lot of people are repeating the error that was made during the 3rd edition D&D days, where everything had a D20 version. It seems like a lot of people are choosing to do 5th edition D&D versions of their games, and I think that's a mistake. And I'm waiting for a crash to happen, unfortunately. I have a lot of history, good and bad, in the industry. I've got a lot of name recognition, good and bad, in the industry. Yeah, I came up when PDF was really coming up and taking off and enabling a lot of people to produce their own stuff, when print on demand wasn't yet really a thing, was starting to become a thing. So it's a lot more difficult now to get established, to get recognized. So that's the main thing I would say is don't. And if you're going to, make sure you have a handle on how much success you expect to have. Keep in mind the state of the market, lots of money, too many people, all of these sorts of things. But even so, just by going ahead and doing something, you're ahead of 90% of people, because most people talk about it, think about it, idly ponder it, but never actually do it. So if you get up off your ass and do something, then you're ahead of everyone. But I would say do it for your own satisfaction. Don't spend too much money. You don't expect to make a lot of money off it. Just do it for yourself, for the fact that you can do it and get it out there. And if it's a runaway success, great, fantastic. That's wonderful. But I wouldn't bet on it. Now, when I started, the internet was still relatively new to a lot of people, and I got my first break just by emailing a ton of people. And we happened to get lucky with a couple of companies, one of which then went under. So not that lucky necessarily. You can't really do that anymore. And the larger and middle tier companies that are hiring are unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on your point of view, they're tending to hire along identitarian lines rather than necessarily on talent. And it's unfortunate because it's patronizing to people who fit into these identity categories. And it also means that people who are brilliantly talented aren't necessarily getting the breaks they would otherwise deserve. And I think this whole effort is counter to the intention. It's going to increase tensions and resentment and problems, but that's across all industry everywhere, I would say, but particularly entertainment and creative industries. So we're at the point where I think doing it yourself is the better option. There used to be a lot of prejudice against self-publishing, indie publishing, all of these sorts of things, but that has kind of fallen by the wayside because it's so much easier and so many more people do it now. There's still a bit of snobbery, but not so much. People are perfectly willing, certainly in the gaming space, to pick up whatever it is that you happen to put out. So I would just say, do it. That is the main advice I can give you. Keep your budget low, keep your budget tight. Don't spend money you can't afford to lose. Don't expect to reach a huge audience. Do it for yourself. Do it for the sake of doing it. Do it for the love of doing it. And if you happen to have a big success, great, and then you can probably build on that later on. Artists, practice, and for everybody, I think you need to monetize everything that you do if you want to make a living in gaming. So if you write pieces of fiction set in the same world as your game, put them out there on a blog that has advertisements, or read them out on a podcast which you can monetize, or put them on YouTube, read them on YouTube with some video background or something, talk up your games, anywhere where you can gather an audience and make a little bit of money, even if it's a pittance, it all helps. And when it comes to artists, your practice pieces you can put up for sale as stock art or art prints or whatever else. And for artists, a lot of people who publish, like I do, are perfectly willing to allow you to continue to use that art for prints, to sell it on as stock art. So you get money from us, and because we can't pay a fantastic amount, you'll retain a lot of rights, and you'll be able to continue to profit from the work you've put in on one game into the future. It's all about having a lot of stuff up there, a lot of varied stuff up there, whether it's games or art or whatever else. Anything you can do to get more attention to what you're doing and make even a small bit of money. By the time you've built up a portfolio of 100 stock art pieces, for example, you'll be selling a few every month, and that's a constant trickle of cash, which isn't to be sniffed at. And it means that all that practice work and pieces that you're not necessarily 100% on with, you can still make a bit of money from them. Editing is a cost that you shouldn't cut, but unfortunately we have to. There's software like Grammarly that's good for picking up on that sort of thing, though there's no substitute for a real editor. It's just the margins are so thin in tabletop gaming that you probably can't afford to hire an editor, so do the next best thing. Another thing I find that helps is using text-to-speech software, because it will completely obey all the punctuation and everything, and it'll throw up issues where you've spelt something wrong and haven't necessarily noticed. So that's a good thing to do. I quite often do that. So I feed my book into a text-to-speech program, and I just sit there, listen to it, and stop it whenever I find a mistake and correct that. I think you need many hats, which I'm known for. I know how to do layout in design. I kind of know my way around Photoshop. I have something of an art background, though I didn't turn that into a career. I have something of a fiction background, which helps with the writing and the grammar and spelling and everything, though I make mistakes a lot as well. The more that you can do yourself, the more money you'll save. Video making is something I've picked up along the way. You know, as much as you can do for yourself, it's kind of like DIY. You know, you save money by not having to go outside to a specialist. And layouts and things don't need to be super fancy. You don't need to lay out massive amounts for the Adobe suite. There's plenty of other options and alternatives out there. And that's the best sort of simple advice I can give you. If you want a complete start to finish game design course, I have those videos up on Drivethrurpg, and I do consultancy for about $20 an hour if you want a hand in that way and you've got some cash burning a hole in your pocket. But I would definitely say the best value for money is to go to the video course, get your ducks in a row, and then if you still need consultancy, you can come to me. The course is called Game Design from Start to Finish, and you can find that on Drive-Thru. Zang. Pulp Nova is a collection of short stories in the old pulp style but with a modern twist. You should find something here you like, from western to mythos horror to science fiction. You can get Pulp Nova at Drive-Thru Fiction, on Amazon, or in hard copy from lulu.com.